All right, so welcome back again. So still a little bit more client-side jQuery to work. We've got to do the get JSON request so that we can get the data for the questions. And then once we've got the data for the questions, then we're going to have to display them to the screen. One thing I'm going to warn you about is this app's not going to display anything until the very end. So you're not going to see anything until it just completely works. But the goal for this video is to get the data that we're going to display and then call the appropriate people, and then next time we'll make those appropriate people also work. So today, or in this video, we're just going to do the getting of the data, right? So what we're going to need to do is we're going to open up the JavaScript, so the movie quotes quiz controller, and find where it says fetch questions. So whenever we fetch questions, what we're going to do is we're going to do an AJAX GET request. And what you should do is you should kind of copy in the skeleton. Just because I don't want to go get it from somewhere else, I'm just going to copy it from below. You can copy it from above this video. And so what we're going to do here is we, instead of doing a post, we're going to do a get JSON. That's the big thing. The place where it's going to is quiz questions. And we wrote that before. That's just the path we picked. Data to send. This one actually is going to have some data to send, which is good. So it's going to say questions, and then it's going to send a number for the number of questions. And so the questions this time is a variable, questions per round. So we've already got that done. So I think it's really interesting how similar the passing of parameters looks. If you only use Python on this end and you only use jQuery on this end, you never know that get and post are totally different. But under the hood, that they are totally different, right? So a get, just as a reminder, it uses like it in the URL, it puts a question mark, and then it's like key equals value, like in the URL. And a post has a URL and then a post body, which is set up just totally different under the hood. It's funny that you would never really know it from these things. Also, for no apparent reason, I've been making my variable be JSON whenever I use the get JSON method. And it's just, I don't know, it's JSON in both cases, but I've been using that variable name. Now what's different is, instead of saying post failed, we should probably say like get quiz questions failed. And then we actually are going to have to do something with the response. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy in what these various to-dos were, and we're just going to go through and we're going to make them happen, right? You could actually test it before we do that. I suppose we should test it because we should actually be getting a response, and it should be based on the number of questions per round that's set up. So let's go ahead and test this guy. So come back to your page, do a refresh, and then do an inspect element, because that's the only way you're going to really see anything. And actually, there should be stuff in the console there already. So if you did a refresh, it should have actually done a query for quotes, and printed some things. You could also do things like change the number of questions to only one, and you should see that there's only one question. So I've got the data at this point, so I've only got one question right now. If I did 20 questions, you could see that I would get a much larger response, right? So it's got enough data for 20 questions. Great, so the data is now in the client, which is good. The next thing we want to do is we want to call the appropriate people. So to call the appropriate people, we've got some to-dos here. So we want to call display new quotes on the quiz question controller. So if you kind of scroll to the top of this, you can see that there's a quiz question controller. So I'm just going to grab the quiz question controller, and he's got a function on him called display new quotes, display new questions. And display new questions is expecting a list of questions. If you come back into here, you can see that the JSON response has questions as one of the fields. And so what we want to do is we want to pass that into display new questions. So we're just going to say JSON.questions. Great. And so that should take care of that guy. The other thing we need to do is on the quiz stats controller. So you can see that this guy has a quiz stats controller. He's going to need to call new round. And if you were to go open up the quiz stats controller and you were to find new round, you can see that he's expecting a parameter, which is how many questions are there in this round. And we've actually got access to that right here, right? So questions per round is what we call that. So those two things are pretty easy. We do have one little problem, and that's that we've said this, but you can see we're actually inside a callback function. So we've got the this is not this anymore problem, which is easy to fix. I've actually already made a variable for you up here. So where it used to say this, you just need to stick in the movie quotes quiz controller instead of the word this. And then the last thing we want to do is if they're like deep in the page, when they click on new questions, we want it to scroll them up to the top. So there are, of course, a bunch of ways to do this, some that use jQuery and some that don't. Since we're jQuery people, we're going to do it the jQuery way. So we're going to say, hey, jQuery, find the window. So the window is a variable that represents the entire window. And we're going to call the function on you scroll top, which you could go look up that function. It either, if you pass it no parameters, it reads the value. If you pass it a parameter, it executes it. We're going to say scroll top 0. Note that without jQuery, it's actually pretty easy to do this as well. It's called like scroll top, except for you have to pass in an X and a Y. But here we'll use jQuery to do it. All right, so once we've got that, then we've told the appropriate people that need to know about these quiz questions. So if we refresh this, and now what you should do is you're actually telling these people about things. The only problem is one of them is not written yet because we're going to write it next time. So you can see that it threw an error and it says quiz question controller couldn't do something, and then it says that it couldn't find question, and that's because it's set to undefined right now, because that's something we're going to fix next time. So at the end of this video, you've got all the data, you're calling the appropriate people, and then in the next video, we're going to actually like use that data to create elements and display them on the page. All right, see you next time when we create some HTML elements from JavaScript.